Throughout history, one truth has echoed louder than any trumpet, louder than any war drum, louder than the roar of kings and empires. It's not just a rumor. It's not a myth. It's not a theory whispered in ancient scrolls. It's a reality repeated over and over again across continents, across generations, across every attempt to erase it. The enemies of Israel always fall. Kingdoms have tried, dictators have tried, generals, tyrants, armies, and alliances all have come and gone. From Pharaoh's chariots drowning in the Red Sea to Babylon's towers reduced to dust, from Goliath's fall in the valley to the silence of Hitler's bunker, the story doesn't change. Israel, a nation that was scattered, enslaved, exiled, and nearly erased, continues to rise. And those who raise their hands to destroy it, they fall every single time. Is it luck? No. Is it military genius? Not always. Is it coincidence? Impossible. There's something deeper at work here. There's a force greater than geopolitics, greater than borders, greater than history itself. And the Bible, the ancient sacred record, doesn't just hint at it, it declares it. God made a promise to Israel. And when God makes a promise, He keeps it. So today, we're going to take you on a journey through Scripture, battle by battle, story by story, to reveal how time and time again, the enemies of Israel rise in pride, but always fall in defeat. This isn't just a lesson in history. It's a lesson in divine justice. So sit back, listen close, because what you're about to hear changes everything. Let's begin with one unshakable truth. Israel, the ancient nation, the chosen people, was never just protected by walls, swords, or kings. What truly set them apart wasn't their size, strength, or strategy. It was their relationship with God. From the very beginning, God made a covenant. Not a contract that can be broken, but a sacred promise with a man named Abraham. In Genesis 12:3, God says something powerful. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. This wasn't just a personal blessing for Abraham. It was the foundation of a divine protection placed over his descendants, the people of Israel. God was saying, if someone stands with you, I'll bless them. But if someone rises against you, they'll answer to me. This covenant shaped history. It wasn't about Israel being perfect. Far from it. The Bible openly shows their mistakes, their doubts, and their disobedience. But what never changed was God's promise. This is why Israel's enemies, no matter how powerful they seemed, always fell. They weren't just battling a tribe. They were confronting the God who created heaven and earth. The God who fights for His people. And when God fights, no one wins against Him. This covenant is the invisible shield that has protected Israel through slavery, exile, and war. It's not about politics. It's not about borders. It's about promise. A promise made by God Himself. And He never breaks a promise. The first major enemy to rise against Israel was Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. At the time, Israel wasn't a mighty nation. They were slaves, oppressed, beaten, and forced to build cities for a ruler who thought he was a god. For over 400 years, the Israelites cried out under the weight of suffering. But God heard them, and He raised up a man named Moses to confront Pharaoh and lead the people to freedom. Moses didn't come with an army. He didn't come with weapons. He came with God's command, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh refused. He laughed at Moses. He ignored God. And so the Lord sent plague after plague. The Nile turned to blood. Frogs, gnats, and flies filled the land. Livestock died. Boils broke out on skin. Hail smashed the crops. Darkness covered Egypt for 3 days. And finally, the firstborn sons of Egypt died in a single night. At last, Pharaoh gave in. He told Moses to take the people and go. But pride dies hard. Pharaoh changed his mind and sent his army to chase Israel down. The Israelites reached the Red Sea, trapped between water and war. But God made a way. The sea split in two, and Israel walked through on dry ground. When Pharaoh's army followed, the waters came crashing down. Exodus 14:28 says, "Not one of them survived." Pharaoh, the most powerful man in the world, was brought to nothing. Why? Because he didn't just defy Israel, he defied Israel's God, and the result, he fell. After escaping Egypt and wandering the wilderness for 40 years, the people of Israel were finally ready to enter the promised land. But the first obstacle in their path wasn't just a city. It was a fortress, Jericho. Jericho wasn't weak. Its walls were massive, thick, and terrifying. Its gates were shut tight. The city was known for being unconquerable. To any human eye, it was impossible to defeat. But God doesn't work by human logic. He gave Joshua, Israel's leader, the strangest battle plan ever recorded. March around the city once a day for 6 days. On the 7th day, march 7 times, blow the trumpets, and shout. No siege weapons, no surprise attack, no fight, just walking, just obedience. And Israel obeyed. Day after day, they circled the city in silence. And on the 7th day, they did exactly what God commanded. Then came the shout, and suddenly the impossible happened. Joshua 6:20 says, "When the people shouted, the wall fell down flat." The walls that symbolize power, fear, and human strength crumbled like dust. Israel rushed in. The city fell. Not because of military might, but because God fought for them. Jericho teaches a powerful lesson. No barrier, no fortress, and no wall can stop what God has declared. When God gives a promise, even the strongest defenses will collapse. Jericho's fall wasn't just a victory. It was a statement, a warning to every nation that stood in Israel's path. If you stand against God's people, your strength won't save you, because when God is on your side, walls don't stand. They fall. While Israel was still journeying through the wilderness, weary, unarmed, and vulnerable, an enemy came from behind. The Amalekites, they didn't face Israel in open battle. No, they attacked the weak, the tired, the elderly, the children at the back of the camp. It was a cowardly, ruthless assault, and God took it personally. In Exodus 17, Israel went to war with Amalek. While Joshua led the soldiers on the battlefield, Moses stood on a hill holding up the staff of God. As long as Moses kept his hands raised, Israel prevailed. But when his arms dropped, the Amalekites pushed forward. So Aaron and Hur came beside Moses and held up his arms, one on each side, until the sun went down. And that day, Israel won the battle. But God wasn't finished. He declared in Exodus 17:14, "I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." God didn't just defend Israel. He promised to erase the name of those who tried to destroy them. Years later, in 1 Samuel 15, God told King Saul to finish the job to destroy the Amalekites completely. But Saul disobeyed. He spared their king and some of the spoils. Because of that act of disobedience, Saul lost his throne. God removed his favor from him. Eventually, Amalek faded from the pages of history. The nation that tried to wipe out Israel no longer exists. God keeps his word. The Amalekites teach us something clear. When you target the people of God, especially the defenseless, you bring judgment on yourself. They attacked the weak, but they fell before the strength of God. The Philistines were another fierce enemy of Israel. Skilled in war, armed with iron, feared across the region. But their greatest weapon wasn't a sword or a shield, it was a giant Goliath. He stood over 9 feet tall, covered in heavy armor. And for 40 days, he stepped out onto the battlefield to mock Israel and mock their God. "Choose a man to fight me," he shouted. "If he wins, we'll be your servants. But if I win, you'll serve us." Israel was frozen in fear. Not one soldier dared to face him. Then King David, a young shepherd boy, bringing food to his brothers. He wasn't a warrior. He had no armor, no training, but he had faith. He heard Goliath's insults and asked one question: who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? David stepped forward with nothing but a sling and 5 smooth stones. He told Goliath, "You come with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the Lord." 1 Samuel 17:45. Then he ran toward the giant, swung his sling, and 1 stone struck Goliath's forehead. The giant fell face down. Silence filled the battlefield. David then took Goliath's own sword and ended the fight. The Philistines ran in fear. The message was clear: no enemy is too big when God is with you. Even giants fall. Goliath didn't just lose a battle. He became a symbol, a warning. No matter how strong, proud, or terrifying the enemy seems, if they stand against God's people, they will fall. Not because of man's power, but because of God's hand. Now this part of Israel's story takes a sharp turn. What happens when Israel disobeys God? What happens when the people he protects begin to turn away from him? God in his justice allowed consequences. And one of those consequences came in the form of a rising empire. Babylon, led by King Nebuchadnezzar. Babylon invaded Jerusalem, tore down the temple, and took many Israelites, including Daniel and his friends, into captivity. To the world, it looked like Israel had finally fallen. Jerusalem was in ruins. Their leaders were gone, their temple destroyed. But even then, God was in control. He wasn't done with his people, and he wasn't done with Babylon either. The empire that seemed unstoppable, that burned holy places and mocked the living God, was unknowingly digging its own grave. In Daniel 5, a later Babylonian king named Belshazzar threw a great party using the golden cups stolen from God's temple. He drank wine from them. He praised false gods. Then suddenly a mysterious hand appeared and wrote a message on the wall. "Man mente up," Daniel interpreted it. "God has numbered your days. You have been weighed and found lacking. Your kingdom will be divided." That same night, Babylon fell to the Medo-Persian Empire. Just like that, gone. They thought they had conquered Israel, but in reality, they had picked a fight with Israel's God. Pride comes before the fall. And no empire, no matter how mighty, can stand forever when it defies the will of God. Babylon rose high, but it crashed hard because even in discipline, God defends his covenant. And Israel still stood. Some enemies attack with swords, others with laws. Enter Man, a powerful advisor in the Persian Empire, a man consumed by pride and hate. In the book of Esther, we meet him as second in command to King Xerxes. When one Jewish man named Mori refused to bow to him, Man didn't just get angry. He got evil. He didn't want revenge on one man. He wanted to wipe out the entire Jewish people. He went to the king and disguised his hatred with political language. "There's a people scattered among your kingdom who don't obey your laws. Let me deal with them." And the king agreed. With the king's seal, Man sent out a decree. On a set date, every Jew in the empire would be slaughtered. Men, women, children, all gone in a day. It was a planned genocide, a legal Holocaust. But what Man didn't realize was that Queen Esther, the king's own wife, was a Jew, risking her life. She went before the king uninvited. She fasted, she prayed, she waited for the right moment. Then she exposed Man's evil plot. The king was shocked and furious. In a twist of divine justice, Man was executed on the very gallows he had built for Mari. Esther 7:10 says, "So they hanged Man on the gallows he had prepared for Mori." The Jewish people were saved, their enemies were defeated, and a day meant for mourning became a day of celebration. Still remembered as Purim to this day, Man tried to exterminate God's people. But in the end, he destroyed only himself. So after all these ancient stories, you might ask, what about now? Do these patterns still apply? Do the enemies of Israel still fall? The answer is yes. History didn't stop with the Bible. The story of Israel continued through exile, persecution, and survival unlike anything the world has ever seen. After the Romans destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD, Israel disappeared from the map for nearly 2,000 years. But the Jewish people, they endured, scattered across the world, oppressed in almost every continent, and yet never erased. Then came the 20th century. In one of the darkest moments in human history, Nazi Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, murdered 6 million Jews during the Holocaust. Hitler made it his mission to wipe them out entirely. But what happened? Hitler fell. Nazi Germany collapsed. And just 3 years later, in 1948, Israel was reborn as a nation. After nearly 2 millennia in exile, they returned home. Coincidence or fulfillment? Since then, Israel has fought war after war, often outnumbered, surrounded by enemies. Yet they survived again and again. In 1948, 1967, 1973, nations rose against Israel. But they fell back, defeated, surprised by outcomes no one expected. Even today, threats still surround Israel in politics, media, and terror. But one thing hasn't changed. The God of Israel still keeps his promises. The pattern remains. When people rise to bless Israel, blessing comes. But when they rise to curse her, history shows how quickly they fall. This isn't just past tense. It's present reality, and it points to one unshakable truth. God is not done with Israel, not now, not ever. From Genesis to Revelation, from ancient enemies to modern ones, one thing remains unshakable. God's promise to Israel still stands. This doesn't mean Israel is perfect. The Bible is clear. The people of Israel stumbled many times. They doubted. They rebelled. They were disciplined by God himself. But God never abandoned them because his covenant wasn't based on their goodness. It was based on his faithfulness. He said to Abraham, "I will make you into a great nation. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you." Genesis 12:23. That was not a temporary contract. It was an eternal vow. And all throughout Scripture, we see that God defends his people not because they always deserved it, but because he promised to. In Zechariah 2-8, God calls Israel the apple of his eye. In Isaiah 54-17, he declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." And in Isaiah 54-10, he says, "Though the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed, yet my unfailing love for you will not be shaken." Those aren't poetic lines, they're prophetic realities. So whether it was Pharaoh, Goliath, Mon, Babylon, or modern-day enemies, they all faced the same outcome. They rose against Israel and they fell. Because Israel's strength doesn't come from its numbers or its armies. It comes from the God who keeps his promises. And that same God, the one who split seas, brought down giants, and crumbled kingdoms, is still watching, still defending, still keeping his word. The enemies of Israel always fall. Not because of who Israel is, but because of who God is. You don't have to be Jewish to learn from this. You don't have to be a scholar, a theologian, or a pastor to understand the message. Because this truth goes beyond culture, beyond religion, beyond borders. It's a truth for all of us. No matter where we come from or what we believe, here's what we can all take from the story of Israel. God keeps his word always. In a world where promises are broken every day, where leaders change their minds and people turn away, God remains steady. When he speaks, it happens. Maybe not instantly, but certainly. God defends his promises no matter how long it takes. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes it takes generations. But the Bible shows us over and over again, God is never late. He's never outpowered. And he never forgets what he said. Every enemy of God's people eventually falls. The names may change, the methods may change, but the result always the same. God protects what he has chosen, and those who rise against his purpose will fall by his hand. Because here's the bottom line. When you fight against the people of God, you're not just fighting flesh and blood. You're fighting the God who parted seas, who leveled empires, who raised the dead. And he never loses. This isn't just ancient history. This is a living testimony, a reminder to stand with what God stands for, and to never underestimate the power of his covenant. The story of Israel is not just their story. It's a warning. It's a witness. And it's a wake-up call for the world. So next time someone asks you, how does Israel keep surviving? How do they always come back again and again? How do they win even when they're outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched? You don't need to give them a long political explanation. You don't need to cite military strategies or economic theories. You don't even need to argue. Just tell them the truth, the biblical truth. Israel survives because God keeps his promises. Israel overcomes because no one can stand against the one who defends them. And Israel rises because the enemies of Israel always fall. It's not a coincidence. It's not chance. It's not about luck or timing. It's about a covenant made by God, protected by God, and upheld by God. From Pharaoh to Haman, from Babylon to Hitler, history has shown the same pattern. Try to crush Israel and watch your own fall begin. Because when you fight against Israel, you're not just picking a fight with a nation. You're picking a fight with God himself. And the Bible has made one thing crystal clear. He never loses. So the next time the world is watching, questioning, doubting, you'll know exactly what to say. Because this isn't just history, it's prophecy in motion. This is biblical truth. If you found this powerful, give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more bold, eye-opening biblical stories that prove God is still on the throne.